Right, for the first step on this, I'm going to reassemble the motor cage first with the motor, because that will allow me to more easily try that out on the shimming and see how it fits up to the bevel gear. Now, if you remember in part 1, I just snipped these connections off for quickness, so I need to desolder those and clean that up. Now, I know a lot of motors will have spade connectors. I'm actually going to resolder these ones because you don't need to disconnect the motor to fully disassemble the gun. It's not like a version 2 where you need to be able to disconnect the motor to get the gearbox out. So those are nicely tinned for the connections we're going to be putting back on there. So, disc back in place, motor back in, other half on, and they slide together. There we go. And then it's just a matter of putting that single screw in. Tension spring and its grub screw. We'll set the motor height when we get the gearbox running, but for now we'll just loosely thread that in. That'll do just now. Onto the gearbox itself. So the reassembly of the gearbox is the exact opposite of what we showed in part 1. We've got the two shells which I've just blasted up just to make them look nicer. It's more of a cosmetic move, but I like to start from a clean surface. We've got some shims, so we've got the ones that we removed from the box here. We've got some new ones if we need them. We've got the sector gear, the bevel gear and the spur gear. We've got the piece of the anti-reversal latch which needs to go inside the box and its spring, and the new bushes. But let's get the bushes in first. You can fit them without a press or a drill press just by pushing them by hand. Just get something to press down and make sure they're pushed all the way into the gearbox, because it is important to get them pushed fully home all the way into the casing, nice and flush. So onto the shimming of this gearbox. It's a little bit backwards compared to version 2s and 3s. You've got to sort of build it almost upside down, and the reason for that is that this anti-reversal latch needs to go down inside this half for its spring to work properly and keep that tension on there. That means we've got to build it with the bevel gear upside down from how we'd normally build it. It also means we've got to put this gear in before the bevel gear, and then this sector gear last. But what we'll do is we'll shim the gears one at a time, and once we're happy with the positions and how they're meshing, we will do a final assembly. So we'll put one shim on here to start. It's not hitting anything. Not a lot of play. Maybe just one shim on the other side, and then we'll check how the motor runs into it. Now you can use feeler gauges and so on if you really want to be super accurate, but I find just doing a quick trial and error usually gets the gears as good as they're going to ever need to be. That's a little bit tight. If I pinch the casing shut, that's quite stiff, and I don't want any drag on these gears. I would rather that they were on the loose side than too tight. So we'll take this shim off and try a thinner one. That's a lot better. Just try a slightly different one, see if we can close up the play just a little bit more. It's still good. Spinning pretty freely. By the time there's a little bit of oil or grease in there, that'll be perfect. And very, very little play. So that's the bevel gear done. I just need to make sure that the motor runs into it properly, which it does. I can feel it engaging. I can actually see down inside there. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but all we're looking for is the motor to be engaging on the bevel gear enough that its adjustment will allow perfect fit. Yeah, that's good. I can see the pinion gear coming in there. So that's the bevel gear done. We'll take that out and keep its shims in the right order. And then we'll do the spur gear and the sector gear. Spur gear in. Here it's hitting the casing just a little bit, so we'll start with a shim on there. I think there's a fair bit of play in the spur gear, so let's have a go. That's better. And there's still a lot of play there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to check it against the bevel gear, because if, when that is bottomed out that way, it is running nice into the bevel gear, then we'll keep it there and we'll put the shims on the top. If it needs to come up, we can put more shims on the bottom, but either way we'll have it shimmed up with no play when we're done. It's quite hard to see, but height wise those two gears are perfect in relation to each other. Nothing's hitting. Yeah, that's spot on. So our spur gear is the perfect height off the deck. We just need to pack some shims onto there so that it has no side to side play. This went tight already. So that one shim was too thick. Let's try a thinner one. It's spinning very freely. There's still a bit of play. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Yep, that's pretty good. We'll try it at that. Onto the sector gear. I'm just going to put the spur gear back in at its base position, because that's where it's going to be when it's installed. Let's see where this needs to go. You can see here the sector gear is actually hitting the other gear and it isn't all the way down yet. Those aren't going to mesh too well, so we need to lift the sector gear up. So let's get a shim under there. This may be a little bit too much. We've got a gap there now. It would still work, but we're just missing out on a little bit of tooth engagement. So let's see if we can try a slightly thinner one. So that's actually a lot better. There's still a slight gap between the two gears, but we're getting a little bit more tooth engagement. I think that's going to be fine. Right, so we know the bottom position of the sector gears to go, so let's take the spur gear back out just until we get the sector gear shimmed in nice and firm so that there's no movement. Right, so it's got the shim on the bottom because that's where we want the gear to sit. Let's see how much play we have. Oh, quite a bit of play there still. So let's try quite a thick shim. This went too tight. You can see the case isn't even closing and the gear does have a bit of drag. That's pretty good. There's very little play there and it's turning well. So that's just got the shims set for the three gears. What we need to do now is put them all in and see if they're going to work. And that's when I'm going to use a little bit of 3-in-1 oil just to reduce the drag, simulate what it'll be when the grease goes in, and then we'll be able to see how these are all going to run together as an assembly. So that's looking pretty good, pretty happy with that. We'll take it back apart, get the piece of that anti-reversal latch in, and then it can be screwed together, and that's the main section of the gearbox done. Anti-reversal latch, these are usually always a pain in the arse. So that's got the main section together. Now I'm not putting the trigger contacts in just now because I need to do a little bit of soldering work with those, but we can put the motor cage back on, put a little bit of grease on this slide up here. Remember, there's a few bits and pieces go on the outside of this gearbox on both sides. We'll do all that once we've got the soldering done and all the rewiring done. The trigger contacts are back in. But for now, we'll leave it there and we'll go into the upper gearbox section. So one of the things we found in the last video that was a problem with this gun, and it was actually quite a major problem, is that somebody in their wisdom in the past had put two of these O-rings on here, one on top of the other in the groove, in an attempt to try and make a better air seal, maybe. But all it was doing was the O-rings were going in there tight, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the video, but they don't even protrude out the groove, so they weren't even meeting the cylinder anyway, so there was no air seal. The only air seal that was coming from this cylinder head was from the thin O-ring here, which I think is just to guide the cylinder head and stop it scuffing the cylinder. So we've got one of the proper sized O-rings here, and these are meant to be a loose fit in the groove because the ports on the piston head work to remove friction when the gun is drawn the piston back. They cause a vacuum which pulls the O-ring away from the cylinder and into the groove, and then when it goes forward, air pressure goes through those ports and it pushes the O-ring out against the cylinder to cause a good seal. So you can see that with those being in there tight, that just wasn't happening at all. Those are totally unable to move and not making any seal whatsoever. So let's get those out of there. And you can see what I mean about that O-ring being quite loose in there, and that'll allow the ports on the head to do what they're designed to do really. I'll put just a touch of silicone oil in there. A smear inside the cylinder, doesn't need much. Be careful not to pinch the O-ring, and yep, almost perfect compression there. I don't like that thin O-ring there, it seems to be creating a lot of drag, but I don't know if the front of that cylinder head is going to score up the inside of the cylinder, so we'll leave it on for now. We can always take it back apart and remove that thin O-ring from the front edge there. There's a piston pretty much ready to go. A bit of silicone oil on the cylinder head. One end of the cylinder's got a sort of cutout or port on it. The cylinder head goes in the opposite end. One of the other things we noticed in the last one was that the spring had been very crudely cut, and I have heated up the end and reshaped it where it's meant to be, then hardened it and tempered it back again, so that should be fine. It will just give a much more consistent pull from shot to shot, whereas before with that jagged edge sticking down, that would have been inconsistent, it would have jumped around in between shots. So the spring might end up not getting used anyway, because we don't know what power this is going to give. The gun has never been running properly. But we'll get it back together with this, we'll test it, and we'll see if it needs a new spring, then so be it. A little bit of grease on the piston teeth. A little bit in the rails. And so power chamber sits in there. The nozzle, just put a little bit of silicone oil there. That'll blow out after the first few shots. Make sure the tappet plate and the nozzle locate together. There's a groove on the nozzle, so the tappet plate just presses into that. A little bit of grease on the tappet plate where it has to run. Spring goes in there. A smear of grease up and down the spring. Doesn't need to be too precise because it will redistribute in use. And the same on the spring guide. Then hold the power chamber down and push the spring in. This is where it can get a bit spicy. Lock the spring guide in. This is similar to a version 3, it has quite long tabs, so as long as you hold the power chamber down, this one's wanting to sit in fine. Normally that'll want to pop up, so you would want to hold that down with a screwdriver on the spring guide, but this one's being okay. Pop the other half on, and this can sometimes be a little bit of a juggle just to get everything to click through. Just always check up in here, make sure the piston's on its rails, get a blunt ended tool, push it up in here, push the piston, make sure it's moving free, this one's fine. And then we just need to put the screws on the outside. Now in part 1 we only had 3 screws on the outside. The hole down here, the thread is actually stripped out of this one, so we're going to put the 3 in, and hopefully that's going to hold it, because the plate that slides over the top to pinch the top of the casing closed is also missing, but that's up to the owner if he wants to source that and replace that. I can only work with what I've got. I might see if I've got a slightly oversized bolt that will go in there and bite in, then it'll have the 4 screws, but for now we're just putting it together with the 3. That'll do it. Tappet plate moves fine, nozzle moves fine. We've already checked the piston. Just got to clean up the outside of this, get the excess grease off, and that is the main gearbox back together. And that's the basic assembly. Now, as I said, I've still got the parts to put on the outside of it. That's pretty straightforward. Still got the electronics to hook up, but we'll do that in the next section because this video is already getting quite over length. One thing I will do is I'll just do a quick test fire of it. I've got this board that I've used in previous videos. It has a MOSFET wired onto it, motor contacts, and as soon as I hit positive on the trigger contact for the MOSFET, it'll pump through. That's pretty good. We've still got the motor height to adjust, but that's good for now, and that's also on a flat 7.4 volt battery, so with full battery voltage and the motor height set just nice, that'll hopefully be a good little gearbox. Right, so this was originally going to be 2 videos, but it's taken a bit longer than I thought. You know, I'm still not used to making these sort of videos, so there's going to be a third piece. We've still got to put the inner barrel and the hop together and put the external parts on the gearbox and get it all back together, plus test fire it. And I might even get this gun out for a little bit of gaming at my local site, so that'll be good. So if you found this useful, or you need a cure for insomnia because it was quite boring unless you own one of these or are going to buy one of them, please hit that like button, maybe subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, take it easy and I'll catch you in the next one.